Hello, brothers and sisters. Here we are in week 8, getting ready to learn about loops, and I'd like to write a program with you. So I've got the example programming assignments out here from the reading, and I would like to do number 5. Write a program to output the 5 times table from 1 to 12 in this format. Okay, so our program needs to produce a times table, 5 times, and then a number. Those numbers should go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 12. And then we should actually do the computation and produce the product of 5 times the number that will increment. Okay, and as you know, this week's topic is repetition or loops. So we need to do this using a loop. It would be very easy to do without using a loop. And actually, we'll do that just for giggles. All right, so very first, let's create a function. Okay, and I want an output string. And here I could produce my times table by saying something like 5 times 1 is equal to 5. New line. Okay, and then 5 times 2 is equal to 10. New line. Oh man, this is getting tedious, but we're going to do it anyway. 5 times 3 is equal to 15. Whew. I'm done with that. Okay. All right, very good, very good. So here I'm just going to add a simple button, if I can spell button correctly. Okay, let's run it. Oh man, I didn't get my new lines. Ooh. Okay. Because we're not working in my primary language of C#. Silly me, gotta do HTML. Okay, there we go. So we got our 5 times table. I'm not gonna do all of the numbers up to 12 because I just don't have the energy. Okay, so you can see here though, we've got a couple parts to this string. Very first, we've got the calculation, and then we've got a break tag. And we need to add that 12 times to our output string, right? And this assignment calls for 12 times, but what if you were supposed to do it 12 times and then a future assignment called for 60 or 100 times, right? This pattern of just writing it out is not sustainable for huge numbers. What if it was 1,000? That would be the rest of your semester, right? So the way that we produce a lot of output or do a lot of operations that are very similar is by using a loop. Okay, so I'm going to keep my output string variable. Okay, but now I know there are a couple steps that I need to repeat. For example, I need to take 5 and the multiplication operator, get a number. And actually, we want a specific number. And before we do that, we want to increment the number, right? So we're going to start at 1, then we're going to go to 2. So increment the number. Then we're going to get the number. We're going to add the number to the string. Then we're going to add an HTML break tag so it looks pretty. And we're going to do this 12 times. Okay. So again, I could write the code to do this, and I could copy and paste it and modify it slightly, and I could do that 12 times. But I'm not going to do that. Right? The way we repeat statements, so these are all of the statements that we will need to repeat. We put them inside of a loop. Okay, and there are a couple different ways we can do this. We'll do both. All right, so very first, we have a counter variable. So I will say var current number, and I'm going to start it at 1. Then I'm going to use our loop keyword, while, and I will say while the current number is less than or equal to 12, we're going to do some stuff, okay? And just like a function requires an open and closing curly bracket, just like an if statement requires an open and closing curly bracket, these loops require an open closing curly bracket. And these curly brackets say, I will repeat all of the statements while this condition is true. Okay, so it's going to repeat all the statements inside curly brackets while this condition is true. So let's add some of these statements, right? So we have got the first part here. We're going to do something 12 times. Okay? So very first, we're going to start building our string. We're going to take 5 and the multiplication operator and add them to the output string. Okay, very next we're going to do it a little differently. So we're going to get the number and add the number to the output string. And then we're going to increment the number because we're starting at 1. If we had started at 0, we could increment before. And actually, before we do that, we are going to add an HTML break tag. Okay, so this output string is going to change a lot. And by change, I mean strings are immutable, and we're going to create new strings a lot. Okay? So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and save, refresh. Here we go. Oh, we skipped some steps. Very easy to see that we skipped the steps when you look at the output. Okay, slight interruption from my kids, sorry. So we skipped a couple steps here before the HTML break tag, and actually we need to do times because that's what our assignment asked for. We forgot to actually do the calculation, okay? So we need to we added the current number. Right here, before we add the break tag, we need to do multiplication and then add the product to the result string, the output string. Okay, so first off, let's do the result. Okay, now we can add that to the output string along with an equal sign. Okay, And that should hopefully be everything that we need. Wrong, we've got an error. Line 27. Oh, one extra equals operator. Okay, and there we go. So here's our times table, and it looks like the math is correct. 5 times 10 is 50, 5 times 12 is 60, okay? So this is a while loop. You should have done the reading by now and noticed that all of these statements will repeat while this condition is true. And this condition will be true it will be true 12 times, right? Because we start at 1, we increment current number by 1 until it's not less than or equal to 12. So as soon as we get to 13, we exit the loop and we go to the next line after the closing curly brace of the loop. Okay, so that was doing with a while loop. So I'm going to cut this for now. I'm going to cut all of it for now. And we're going to rewrite it with a for loop. Okay. So a for loop is very similar to a while loop. In fact, almost any loop that you can create as a while loop, you can also create as a for loop and vice versa. Okay, a for loop is a little different. So think of it this way. We say for a variable, and we're going to say var current number, and we give it a value for a current number while this condition is true. And then after all of the statements inside of curly brackets are executed, we're going to increment the current number. All of these steps were present in our while loop. If you compare it, we have declaration of current number, declaration of current number. We have a check to see if the loop should continue. Is current number less than or equal to 12? We have that here. Is current number less than or equal to 12? And we also had increment current number by 1. In the while loop, we also had increment current number by 1. Okay, the for loop just condenses a lot of those statements together. Okay, and that's because these operations declare a counting variable, check to see if the counting variable has reached the end of the count, and increment the counting variable are very common for almost every loop. Okay, so a for loop is a little bit better way to organize certain loops. All right, so for this for loop, we can now copy and paste almost the entire program. We can copy and paste almost the entire program. So I'm going to take all of this code and paste it back into the for loop. Notice that I did not copy the increment statement because the increment statement was already included. And I also need to get my output string. Notice I'm not copying the current numbered variable declaration because it's already here. Okay, very good. So we'll refresh and produce our times table, and the math checks out again. Okay, so you can see a for loop and a while loop can accomplish the same task. Okay, and just for those of you who see some of this code as a little clunky, just know that we can condense it all down into one line inside of the for loop, and we can do that by doing something like this. Okay, that should hopefully be everything. Okay, and there it is. We've condensed all of those down into one single statement. Okay, well, I hope this has been beneficial for you to see how we write a while loop, how we write a for loop, and how we do it to produce a times table.